I can't remember if we covered like this character's version of this, but it really does kind of just drive the point home and how they keep having to rehash these sort of ideas, but they're also actively cheapening the brands and the people that wouldn't dare to listen to folks like myself and other folks who are still even giving like the mainstream a chance. And they keep cheapening their brands, and they don't understand what that does for a lot of other customers. I did cover when Miles Morales, that was announced that he was getting his own Clone Saga. Now we have, I thought they called her Ghost Spider now, but this headline from Screen Rant says Spider-Gwen. And now they're getting a Clone Saga. We'll read. Starting this March, the beloved Marvel hero Spider-Gwen will be facing off against a series of villainous clones of herself. Spider-Gwen shadow clones. Spider-Gwen, the Earth 65 variant of Gwen Stacy, who also goes by Ghost Spider, so they do acknowledge that. Has been a fan favorite since her debut in comics. I don't know if they mean Gwen Stacy or if they're actually meaning the Ghost Spider character, but those books never really did that well. But it's one of those things that you can't convince them otherwise. You can show them all the data and all the numbers, and it won't change anything. They believe that just because people talk about it, or if like stan accounts maybe like it, pretend to like it, if people cosplay the characters, then that's basically the only metric that there is, even though in this context we are specifically talking about comic books. In Spider-Gwen's universe, she was bitten by a radioactive spider instead of Peter Parker. Copy paste like the Miles Morales and other spider folk, just this time it's Gwen Stacy. They do continue on right here, and this is the part that is important. It says, for Marvel Comics, seems to be taking inspiration from Spider-Man's classic Clone Saga. Of course, the Clone Saga was one of the more divisive deals pertaining to Peter Parker's Spider-Man. But they done it with Miles. Miles has I did cover this on the channel. He has a evil clone, and his name is Miles spelled backwards. Not even joking. I'm not making it up. That is a real thing that is happening in comics. And now we have Gwen Stacy, who is going to be getting a lot of the same treatment. So they're rehashing constantly these old ideas, things that we've already seen. But what it does do is that, they have to rely on that. You have to consider that because, well, they're basing these characters that they've created who are piggybacking, of course, off of the OG Spider-Man. So in order to try to, definitely with Marvel relying on events, DC does this as well for sales and stuff. They got to kind of do these kind of cheap gimmicks, and what I guess better way maybe they're thinking than to do this than to just rehash what we've already seen, since we've already basically created a knockoff version of Peter Parker anyway, in having this version of Spider-Man and Spider-Gwen or Ghost Spider, whatever it is that they're called. Now, again, the folks that don't listen, well, of course, hey, she's female. You got a problem with female characters, much like Miles. You got a problem with female characters or black characters in his case. Mantle. Everybody can be Spider-Man. Copy, paste. Stan Lee out of context talking about not Miles Morales at all, actually. He's talking about Peter Parker and the fact that, his whole body was covered. That gets taken out of context, and then they, of course, will throw that out to you. It's the same old thing. But listen, the issue here is that you're cheapening the Spider-Man brand, and I get it. He's basically your most popular character in Marvel's case. So they're trying to utilize him in whatever way that they possibly can. And I can understand where they may think that, well, it's because effectively now Marvel's just an IP farm for merchandise, movies, and animations and other stuff. Really things out of the comic books. For the readers, a perspective to consider, my haters, is this type of stuff turned me, for example, off. I know there's plenty of other folks that don't like this thing happening in comics as well. This between the Spider-Verse and the web spiders and all of that I've been covering over years. The fact that there were so many different versions, even when I was reading comics, still reading comics, when you had so many Spider folk, just over a 3-4 week a month span, the amount of Spider folk book that were out was insane between Spider-Verse, Miles Morales Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, Life Story of Spider-Man, Superior Spider-Man, a Symbiote Spider-Man. You of course had Ghost Spider, Spider-Woman. You had who else? I know I missed one of those, Peter. You had like that because that was in the War of the Realms, and Spider-Man had his own War of the Realms little thing as well. Of course, they were bringing Silk. Silk was in the age of Agents of Atlas. There's Spider folk all over the place. Doesn't really make sense for that character considering how exactly he's created, but it's more of Marvel said we're gonna make it make sense simply because this is our most popular character. But that turns a lot of people off because we see the creativity is basically gone, right? It's like you have to take something that exists, copy, paste it, you change a little stuff, but for the most part, it's superficial. You got a person web slinging, doing acrobatic stuff. It's largely very similar, and you don't entertain other aspects. Like it's funny, like you talk about spiders and the different types of spiders that are out there. So even if you were doing let's say a person that it has spider based power, they kind of used to try to do that, not as much anymore with like Spider-Woman, where it's like, yeah, this character has spider based powers or something of that nature, but we're gonna try to have it be something different as opposed to them web slinging. But that would then have to separate it from the OG Spider-Man, and then they look at it like, well, it's not worth the investment to try something new with these newer characters. So instead, we just make a bunch of different versions of Spider folk, and we change things that are superficial. So a slight power change, but it's not. It's still basically a Spider folk. It's cheapening Spider-Man as the character per se. But you're asking people to invest in these books or buy these books or keep up with this, and you're just rehashing stuff that they've already seen, right? It's not the comfortable familiarity where you're giving people that maybe are readers and are interested in this type of material, and you give them something that's identifiable. There's nothing wrong with that at all. What we're specifically talking about is the copy paste. Another version of the same character that we've already seen. That's essentially what it is that you're doing. And they couldn't be any more obvious for these people who, just like with Miles, they pretend like because there's a slight, oh, well, he had his parents around. Like, just superficial differences. Well, he's a different character. It's like, no, he's created to check a box. But the differences per se are superficial. And then they do stuff like they did with Miles, a Clone Saga, which tells you in itself that, well, yeah, they are really trying to do what they already did with Peter. And this is why I continue to say with a lot of these characters, there's nothing from them that are with these new Spider folk or other versions of other characters. There's nothing for the most part that we haven't already seen from others, right? Even with the clones from the Ben Rileys of the world, we've already seen a lot of that stuff. Even with like I talked about that with Miles with the invisibility or the whole, which was basically we've seen that out of other copies of Spider. Even Peter with his stealth suit and the Venom blast stuff, of course, that comes from Spider-Woman. We've already seen all of this stuff. This isn't anything new. Those changes that they have are superficial. It's more, we need the brand recognition, and how can we convince you to buy it? Well, we say, hey, you recognize that. You see that here. But it's a lack of creativity that I had a problem with, and I know other people that had an issue with it as well. It's not that they have an issue with, let's say, newer characters. It has nothing to do with anything. It's more that, dude, you're not giving them reasons to invest, and you're actively cheapening some of your more popular properties. And why on earth would I invest in that?